Dober večer. Nocojšnji pogovor bo potekal v angleščini, spoštovanje do našega gosta, ki pa se bo včasih iz angleščine lahko preselil tudi v svojo materno japonščino, po zaslugi kolegice prevajalke, ki jo imamo tukaj. Veliko čast mi je, it's my great honor that I'm between you two tonight. My role will be to ask some questions, but also to start by introducing you both. And allow me to say that it's a great honor to have Tatsuo Miyajima in Nova Gorica. He was born in Tokyo in 1957. He studied fine arts at Tokyo University of the Arts in the 80s and got an honorary doctorate at the University of the Arts in London in 1998. For 10 years, between 2006 and 2016, he was vice president of Tohoku University of Art and Design in Yamagata, and between 2012 and 2016, also vice president of Kyoto University of Art and Design. Symbolically, the first on the list of his many solo exhibitions was in 1990 in Hiroshima City Museum of Contemporary Art, and the exhibition was called Hiroshima Installation. And if you go on his website all the way to today, 35 years later, he exhibited this year in New York and Seoul, and as he just told us, travels to Taiwan from here. The first one on the list of his group exhibition is also symbolic. It is the 43rd edition of La Biennale di Venezia in 1988. And this year we could see his works as part of large retrospective prism of the real, covering art in Japan from 1989 to 2010 in the National Art Center in Tokyo and in Better Co-Being Pavilion of Osaka World Expo. I would like to mention also his current exhibition in Art Museum in Korea because it has the title that he's very often using as the motto of all his work, which is keep changing, connect with everything, and continue forever. And once you go on his website, you could develop further those three concepts. That was really instrumental also for me to prepare this work. So welcome, Mr. And Alexander was born in Gorizia in 94, so he's a half age of our Japanese guest. Both his parents, Ingrid Cilic and Tatsuo Gadjiev, are piano teachers and musicians. He played with an orchestra for the first time at the age of 9 and gave his first solo concert at the age of 10. He studied in Salzburg and Berlin, graduating in spring 2022. I will mostly focus on the relation with Italy and Japan because this is where we are today. So he won Premio Venezia, a competition reserved for the best young talents in Italy, and first prize at the Hamamatsu International Piano Competition in 2015. His interpretation at the International Chopin Competition in Warsaw in 2021 was decisive for future reception of his work. Between 2019 and 2021, he was a BBC New Generation artist, meaning that many of his concerts were recorded and broadcasted by BBC. As a solo pianist, Alexander performs with numerous orchestras. I'll mention also only BBC Concert Orchestra, Orchestra Sinfonica Nazionale della RAI, Orchestra Sinfonica del Teatro delle Fenice, Nagoya Philharmonic Orchestra, or Kyoto Symphony Orchestra. As you well know here, he is the ambassador of this year's European Capital of Culture, and in the framework of it, the first edition of the cross-border festival Sconfinamenti, Prečkanja, under his artistic direction, took place in summer of 2024. After promoting Go25 in Berlin and performing at the opening on February 8th, we would never forget two of his summer concerts, one of nearby Europe Square and the other in the Basilica of Franciscan Monastery in Sveta Gora. His last solo album, Legend, was released a month ago. So I think both our guests need serious applause. We have here a sculpture and a piano player, I would say two sculptures in time. And the way how I would like to moderate this debate is a 3-round of questions. Then I will open the floor for some of your questions, but also for the mutual questions between you two, I hope. And then another 3-round. And for the end, I prepared a little surprise also for our two guests, which is a literary surprise, where I would like, in a way, to introduce a third figure on this stage, but through his writing, and you will see who this will be. But this will be a surprise for all of you. But let me start somewhere completely else. There was a famous Reebok commercial with hurdle champion Sandra Farmer-Patrick back in 2007. In this commercial, first we hear her voice. People ask me what runs through my mind when I race. And then we see her running, and the only thing we hear is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 14, kick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14, kick. And her final comment is, what were you expecting, Shakespeare? No, I'm working here. So my first question to our Japanese guest, who mentioned in the Academy of Arts a few days ago, that there is no sound in his installation because people are in fact counting in their heads. But my first question to you is, what runs through your mind when you are working, when you are creating? Or maybe even more precise, when would you say that you create? Is it when you have an idea, when you draw it, or when you build the technical installation to perform it?
It's hard to say. The moment an idea comes to me, when I sketch it, or when it becomes a physical form, all of those are moments of creation. But I think for me, the moment I feel I am truly creating is when I'm engaged with society or other people. So if I stay only within myself, I can't go beyond my own limits, understand, in creation. So, but when I work with the craftspeople, staff, or even children, so my initiate image often change, and in that change, I feel the work truly comes alive. So this is my mostly important creation.
So if I understood well, for you, creation is a collective act. In fact, it is
necessary,
exactly involving community and other people.
Yes, relationship,
Yeah.
So that's a very important for the creation.
Thank you very much. Alex, is it allowed at all to ask the piano player what runs through his mind when he's playing? Because I would really like you to elaborate a little bit on the relation when you are on stage between your mind, memory, fingers, and your body. Where does the real magic happens?
Yeah, yeah, it's an impossible to answer question. I think for most performers, the simple answer is we don't want to think. So the least you think, the better it is. Because you have thought a lot at home, and you have rehearsed, you have tried, you have experimented. And when you're on stage, thinking, it's an art that happens in real time. So you know that if you start thinking, time kind of dilutes or changes its proportion. So thinking is a dimension that is not helpful for music in general. I would like also to say that music, for me, is something that goes beyond information. So we live in a world where information is very, very important, and we tend to be informed all the time about something. But music, you cannot put in words, first of all, and it is not about some information you're trying to give. And I think probably every art has this purpose. But to answer more specifically your question, the magic happens where these elements are definitely combined. Obviously, we play with our hands, but specifically with our fingertips. So the more alive are these little parts of our body, the more sensitive will be the message that you're giving to the piano. So we always play with an intermediation, and we cannot forget that there is an instrument there. There is always an instrument. We are never alone. We are not like dancers using only our body. There is always some mediation. And one could almost say that the piano is actually one of the most unnatural instruments. It's not very natural because it's not strings. It's made of course, there are strings, but you cannot touch the sound. When you sing, you are the sound. When you play a string instrument, you touch the sound. When you play a woodwind instrument, a flute, clarinet, you are in contact with the sound. But here, sound is somewhere there.
It's very interesting what you say, because for us the fingerprint is the identification
Yes.
moment, and you say at the same time the level of sensitivity.
Yes.
It's very, very interesting.
This exactly. This is the point where everything connects from mind, as you said. From memory, of course, plays a crucial role, but ideally, we would like on stage to forget everything and to just, of course, to know what we are about to do, but not to repeat.
So neither to forget.
No, neither to remember. Yeah, yeah, neither to think nor to remember. It's the act of creation should be to somehow live through. So to make the music live through you in that very moment. And that requires, I would say, a certain amount of courage, because from one perspective, everyone knows more or less these masterpieces that are being performed. But at the same time, everyone knows when they sound really new and when they just sound well played.
I'm already looking forward for this conversation, because you see where it goes. It goes into very sensitive answers. When you were defining the role of imagination in artistic creation recently at the Academy, you first used quite classical definition. I know it from Paul Klee, for example, that art is the one that makes the invisible visible. But then you added, for me, a surprising element. You said that the importance of feeling and understanding the pain of the other is the integral part of imagination. So we would usually translate this element as empathy, right? As having the capacity to feel the pain of the other. But how does this element concretely enters into your artwork? How does it influence your imagination, the pain of the other?
Yeah. Imagination is very important for the human being, because imagination is take care for the other people's mind, other people, so the pain of the people. So if no imagination to that, so it's people kill the others. So it's no thinking, that the imagination is very deeply understand others, the others, other people, the pain and the sad and crying, joyful, everything through the imagination. That's why it's very important for me.
Yeah. I think it's very important dimension that you mentioned, because usually we do not connect imagination with the other, but with our own capacity. And this, I think it's, even the students reacted on.
Yeah. So
well
imagination and the creativity is a bit different.
Yes.
But imagination is much more attached with the others. The creation is like by myself, to make it.
Tatsuo was mentioning the pain of the other, and Alex, I imagine that there is one specific other for the interpret of music, which is the composer. So when you're studying a piece, do you consider it a piece as an object per se, or do you always see the subject, the composer behind? And is it in a way important to understand or to feel even the pain of the composer behind?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me say that I hope the composer did not only feel pain. So this is a deep hope I have for the composer, also for myself, because if I just have to deal with his pain, then I'm not left with much. At the same time, we know that many great composers had a short life, for example, and especially in the Romantic era. Schubert, Chopin, Schumann, Mozart, many, Pergolesi, so many. And it raises questions, of course. It raises questions, so I do think that the biography, so to speak, the life that the person lived, is an important element for me. understand. For example, just recently I played actually for the first time Schubert in public just a few days ago, and I worked a lot on his one of his late works, the last improvisations. And he lived only 31 years, and this work was written in the last year. The last year of Schubert's life was incredibly prolific. He wrote what a normal composer would write in 10 years or more. And some of this music is, of course, very dramatic, almost has some presage of what will happen. But at the same time, you have also incredible moments of such pure joy and such pure almost abandon towards, his last days of life. And he knew it's going to end. So you start questioning yourself, how is it possible that a person which is in such state is writing the most, the brightest music, really, almost light in certain moments, with a certain Viennese, almost carelessness and in front of death. And this is a very touching question, because it makes you see the piece in a different perspective, for sure. And you try to enter this sphere of the personal. You try to enter. Obviously, with such complex personalities, you will probably never know exactly what he was going through, but it doesn't even matter, because what he left is the most important. And what he left is obviously the score, and I think he probably didn't even want too much of our compassion towards the person, rather just our dedication towards the work. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I will not always insist on going from one round from another, but the first one was titled The Art of Creation. So what do we do when we create? But the second is obvious, the moment when you touch a little bit more in details Tatsuo's work, and it is the question of time. When you presented your work to us, you have shown the numbers from 1 to 9 in a circle, which looks like a clock, in fact, to us. But also your works are titled Sea of Time, KAKI, Revive Time. So it's a clear insistence of time as a central concept. And we all know that film director Tarkovsky was known for his sculpting in time. And basically, you consider yourself, in a way, a sculptor, right? A kind of author of installation. So maybe it's too abstract to ask you, how do you understand time? So I'll just give you one option to choose. The French philosopher that I like very much, Gilles Deleuze, was saying that time at the same time is a whole, but it's also the smallest possible interval. And he compares this with the bird, which increases its cycle when it's flying, but also that every beating of its wing, in fact, is the interval. So time as an interval or time as a whole? What in mind is more present in your numerology of your work? How do you consider time?
So the time is a very difficult thing, and kind of the very physics and philosophical, But for me, time is a very abstract concept. I think I believe it doesn't truly exist. Doesn't. So only the time becomes visible through the human being. So this is something physics say that. So time and the space also visible through the human being. This is very important for me. For example, too joyful time, so very enjoyable, 2 hours. It's very short, the feeling. But only 15 minutes, very painful, So it's a very long feeling, long time, 1 hour or 2 hours, So it's very, very different. It's kind of a clock time. So it's very different for each other. So just a feeling. Because that's why time become visible through the people. Yeah.
Super. Alex, this is, yeah, of course, please, just go, react. Yeah.
No, it doesn't work anymore. Wait, it worked before. Why not? Baba. Ah, yeah, no, it works. No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah?
No.
No, doesn't work. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's very interesting because it makes me think of a concept in physics that is time as duration. What we were saying about the interval. And so, you know, back in the day, they used to measure time, of course, not in a digital way, but according to how the spheres, the stars, the other planets were moving. So it was in relationship to other entities, other bodies, exactly, that you would feel time. And it was not time as a number, as a let's say, intellectual concept, but it was time as an experience. And I think that is the crucial connection as time lived through humans. And I think for music, this is probably the most important thing because music happens in time. And I think the most powerful performances, the most powerful musical happenings are those where you feel the person is totally in time. So it's not like, as we said before, thinking. Because thinking blocks time. You know, when you start thinking, it's another experience then. But when you're able to play, let's say, any piece of any length, but within the experience of that length, without breaking it. So having all the ups and downs, emotional, you know, crescendos, climaxes and anticlimaxes, and all of this, but within the form and the shape of that one piece, then you can have a really memorable experience. And for that, you need to somehow develop time inside of you. It doesn't come like that.
You anticipated my question. As a musical like, I'm always ashamed to ask you this, but I imagine that the question of time, of tempo, is really essential for what you're doing. But how much freedom do you have in experimenting with time inside one musical piece? And then just another question, did you experience a need to articulate some of your thoughts and experiences with time in music, also in writing, just as an essay, as an interview, as a lecture?
Yeah, well, I did write, many things, but they were usually just small, small thoughts, keys about different topics. How free are we in time? Of course, when a composer chooses material, every material is related to how the material will develop. So you cannot choose the same material for something slow and something fast. It will be a different energy, a different, just different notes will be used, different melodies, different intervals, different. And so we cannot obviously transform and deform a piece of music. That's not the point of the interpreter. The interpreter's point is to bring it in the best possible light. So to catch the essence of a piece. And time plays a big role because obviously that is probably time is the point of connection between the music and the interpreter, because different interpreters have also different bodies, different minds, different imaginations, and so we cannot conceive to have one digital tempo because simply our ears work different, our experience of music works differently. So in order to be really authentic, to be really meaningful, each person has to find its own tempo and its own relationship to time. So I wouldn't say it's a specific question, it's more of a general question. But we do obviously have freedoms, and I think one of the most beautiful actually concepts, a small concept from music, is rubato. Rubato is an Italian word which means stolen, and rubato was a technique, one could say, a way of playing which was very, very much used, especially during the Romantic period by Chopin, Liszt, Schumann, and it basically means that you take some time here and you give it back somewhere else. So it's a way of dealing with tension and release that inhabits every piece of music, where we are able to, point onto something and say, this is important. This is not important. This moment is very important, and this is where we can give more time or take time. So
rubato, we'll remember. Thank
yes.
you. People know me, and they know that I cannot manage a debate without coming to the cinema, because this is my field. And when I have you as a guest from Japan, whenever I'm confronted with the Japanese art, I cannot be asked by the following. We all know about Kurosawa, we all know about Mizoguchi, but we were taught by film teachers that the one who really experienced and let us experience the time in cinema was Yasujiro Ozu. So my simple question is, how familiar are you with his work? Because if we would have the option to show something, I would here on this moment show an excerpt from Tokyo Monogatari, when Noriko, a daughter-in-law, receives this clock, which is of course at the same time the symbol of passing the time, but it's much deeper. It's really, there is the entire Zen philosophy behind. So how important is Ozu today in Japan, and how important maybe it is for your understanding of time in cinema?
Yes, I'm very influenced from his film, and so it's very surprised. So the European people know about Ozu film, the concept for that. So I'm very surprised, because a very difficult film, the concept of the time from the Ozu. And I very much influenced more Ozu. I very inspired from Kurosawa, the film, especially the Ikiru. Yeah, so that film is a very big influence for me, because the guy is an ordinary guy to constantly is a very lazy work, but so he had realized limited of life, so he becomes very refreshed and very active, So that's very interesting for me, and I very influenced for that, and I make something homage for that. Yeah.
To answer your question, who is responsible for my generation to know more about Ozu, it was Wim Wenders. Wim Wenders was writing that at one moment he entered in some Paris cinema and he discovered Ozu as a kind of, if there are sacred things in cinema, it's Ozu.
Okay.
Then he did a documentary on him.
I see.
This was really important for the reception of Ozu in Europe.
Okay.
Alex, are there some film authors, directors or composers that were important for your understanding of art, and even more, were you ever tempted to do what they usually do, in Giornate del Cinema Muto in Pordenone, to react with some music to some of the images that were on the screen?
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer first the second question. I studied for a couple of years in Stuttgart, a master degree in improvisation, and one of the things we did there was actually play on images. Not specifically a whole movie, but more of like a short, let's say short videos or a series of abstract images, or on poetry or on words. And so I did that, and I very much, I'm generally a quite associative person. So I like very much this, let's say, this play, this game between sensorial, different sensorial fields, the visual, the sonoric, the tactile, so and so these experiments were very beautiful, and actually in the last festival, in the last Prečkanja Sconfinamenti, I invited one of my closest friends from Spain, Javier Liebana, who played on a mute film. He improvised for 2 hours in front of a mute film, and that was really there was a really masterly, a masterly representation of what music can do to movie. That was very, very beautiful. And I'm no great expert in cinema, but I would say that I really adore Tarkovsky. And if I think about time and I think about, I don't know, just images that stayed in my mind really strongly, I do have many images from his movies. For example, Zerkalo, Mirror, and several others. And I think of especially one scene from Kubrick's Space Odyssey. I think it's towards the end where you have all these kind of hallucinations and like this visual stimuli where the main character is kind of really moving through time and, I don't know, going to the future, going back into the past, like back in a... Yeah. It's like all these mind experiments, kind of. So talking about time, these two, let's say, film references come to mind, and in music there is especially one composer from the French school in the second half of the 20th century. There was let's say, a stream in music called spectralism. And there was this guy Tristan Murail, who really composed very, very intricate and interesting, combinations of sounds from different instruments, and so on. And he used to talk about two types of time: the time of whales and the time of insects, and that humans have these special radars where they can detect both somehow. So feel this extremely hectic and nervous time of the insects, and feel this eternally long, out breath of the whales. And I remember also listening to some lectures about that, being very, very inspiring.
He was composing for feature films, or he was more
No, he was composing.
Composer,
yeah.
and spectralism.
Yes, spectralism.
Okay,
very, very interesting.
At this particular moment, I would like you to ask each other if there is something that you would know more in details, but also open the floor to you. There is a mic there. Please interact, and then we will move to the second round. But whatever makes you ask some question or react, please use it and don't hesitate. Any questions from the audience? Neda, izvoli? No? Or maybe between you two? You made a little sign when he mentioned Tarkovsky.
Oh, very interesting.
Is it? Huh? Yeah. Cool. Super. A bi mogoče ti ga želel kaj vprašati, ali ne gremo? Ja. Bomo že zdaj ali bomo na koncu? Na koncu. Okay, we go on, we move on, no problem. We are inside the European Capital of Culture, but we are also inside the project. This is supported by EU Japan Fest. So it's maybe the right moment to ask you both the same question, knowing that you both have rich experiences with each other's culture. So my two questions are the following. How are you, Tatsuo, influenced by European art and culture, knowing that, for example, you had a grant in Paris in 1993, and you can prepare an answer. What were yours, Alex, best experience with Japanese culture, knowing, for example, that you have won first prize at the Hamamatsu International Piano Competition, but also that you are playing on a Japanese brand of piano. But let's start with you and your experience from Paris, and maybe also a little bit what you mentioned last time in the academy, the external view to the art scene of that time. Mm-hmm. Please.
So I was graduated the oil painting in our school in Tokyo, art school in Tokyo. That means oil painting.
Okay.
Oil painting born in Europe. That's why. So I learn about European history very deeply from Greek, ancient Greek, and also Rome, and French Impressionism, and also modern art. So all of that from Europe. So our art school, so it's only study about European culture. It's very funny, but oil painting like that. Otherwise, I like the music, also the influence from Europe, Bach and Chopin and Eric Satie, or all kind of the classics. and literature. So it's very deeply influenced for me. So that it's very, very deeply connected with my art, with European culture. But at the same time, I realize go back to by myself, and so it's contract with kind of the European culture and Eastern culture. So I revive and refined to myself the Oriental culture. So that's why, so it's very combined. That's it's very interesting. But basically, it's a European culture. It's very important for me.
We're really honored to host you in the European capital of culture. Yes, Alex, I know that you're big in Japan.
I've been there.
How big is Japan? Is in your?
Japan is very big in my heart, actually. Very big. I've been there, I think, if I count all the trips, more than 1 year of my life.
Really?
So it's a long time. Even though I don't speak, it changes me. And for me, Japan is a healing place. Every time. I say this often, and it's really true. Maybe I arrive to Japan, I don't know, depressed. And then after 1 week in Japan, everything is fine. It's a very unique place, and I think the East at the moment has certainly, we know from the world, that has gaining momentum, not only artistic but financial, cultural. Generally, the societies are thriving very much in Korea, in Japan, in Taiwan, in China, and so on. But I think that one of these advantages, of the great advantages, is that many of the people there, they know well, of course, their own culture, but also European culture, as Tatsuo's story shows. And we know much worse their culture, much worse, for several reasons. And so for me, the first time I came, I was 20. I knew nothing. I went there, and it was very weird. It looked like Disneyland, escalators everywhere, super fast. I don't know, Shinkansen, everything so precise. I was shocked. So I was 20 in Hamamatsu, not even the big city, like less than 1 million people. I thought this is like some province, and it's a huge place, super organized. The elevators go, I don't know, so fast that you cannot even, sometimes too much, and you don't even know how is this possible, So every time I went there, I thought like, yeah, that's how it is. But then after 3, 4, 5 years, I realized, wow, actually, they are people, and they are making it happen like this. It's not just like this, It transformed into that. It's not just they were not born like that. It's not that it's a different species. No, it's a different culture. And when you realized how these things are intertwined, and it's not just the precision, because also in the West we tend to be very precise in certain areas, but then people get also very nervous. So, for example, how to be precise without being nervous? That's a very interesting. It's a very interesting idea, right? And this tells something way deeper about, one could say, the soul of the Japanese soul, if you could say it in one word. And definitely when I'm there, I do absorb this. I try to learn and give what I can give, but also receive. And it's always a very special experience. So I'm very thankful that Japan exists.
Great, thank you. The project that, in fact, not only brought you to Nova Gorica, but also brought you two together is the KAKI Revive Tree. So, in fact, remembering the consequences of the atomic bomb thrown first to Hiroshima, and in the case of our survivor, KAKI 3, even more precise, to Nagasaki. Would you, Tatsuo, for those who did not listen your talk, resume in few sentences your experience from your school trip to Nagasaki when you were 17 years old, and later the importance of this experience for your artistic work, but also for the involvement with the tree doctor in the KAKI project.
Yeah, so I saw the persimmon tree, so it's very deeply moved the moment I saw the young persimmon tree. So I'm very shocked. It's because that the seed, it's very tiny, but very beautiful, you know. So it's a fresh green, and so it's very silent, you know. But at the same time, the seed has kind of the very bad memory behind. Her mother is a damage from the atomic bomb. But so young seed, so it doesn't know that, and fighting to that's like a very bad memory, you know. So I very moved for that. So that I would like to give to the all the children in the world to this beautiful and fight to the atomic bomb, you know. So that's why it's a very change to show it. And actually, so I'm very changed from that KAKI tree, because so before that, I'm thinking artist is very special, so different ordinary people. So it's a kind of the Jesus, yeah, genius, you know. But after that, to see the KAKI tree project and to work with the children and the ordinary people. So I think art is in everybody. Art in you. I think this is a concept, you know. So art is everybody has. So art is not special. So it's touched with art in everybody, you know. So it's a very big change from that.
Thank you. I have the feeling that the understanding of KAKI tree here was the right one, because I remember that at a certain moment Professor Sasha Dobrice from university says it should not be alone. It should be in a company of not only other KAKI trees, but also other trees. So my question to you is a little bit different, but you would know why I'm asking you this. If you go to Park Rafoot, this beautiful garden of very specific species, first, do you ever go there? And I was asking myself, and maybe it's from this childish music of Prokofiev and Peter and Wolf, I was thinking, you know, if you go there and if you would think about the trees of finding matches in instruments, in music, like a little bit Dresden Symphoniker were forced to do, would this be a game interesting for you? Where your mind would go when you would be confronted with with the magnolia tree, with the glycinia tree, with the bamboo trees? How would you react?
It's very interesting. First, I would ask myself, is the music I play very vegetarian, or is it not so vegetarian? I don't know, because a lot of German music is perhaps not the most vegetarian. Especially from the 18th, 19th century. But definitely, here once again I could mention Japan. Every time, last time I have been there, I saw for the first time the sakura. So many times, somehow I never catched it. And it was a very surprising event. Although, you know, we have it also in other parts of the world, but there somehow it creates a whole environment, a whole atmosphere around this happening, and it creates an atmosphere. So it can like immediately evoke sounds, for example. I would say certain music more than other, probably. So what comes to mind is probably mostly French Impressionism. some preludes, for example, by Debussy, which sometimes even mention specifically perfumes or smells of nature. So it would be definitely an interesting experiment, even just to, for example, have a concert in open space with different vegetation and see how that reacts.
Thanks. KAKI necessarily, the destiny of this survival tree necessarily touches another topic of our capital of culture, because if we started with the creation of the new, or the act of creation, here we are really touching with the central pillar of our official program, which is war and peace. So I would like to use this opportunity that we have a project that starts from the seeds of a bombed tree and is now for decades not only creating young plants, but is literally planting the thought of peace among young kids, as you mentioned already. Can you both reflect on the current situation in the world, the need for message of peace, and the ways how you two find the place to fight for it? Because I know your purposes, I know your positions, but I would like for us to understand how difficult it is in fact to create and to think the world in today's situation. And maybe I'll start with you, coming from Japan.
Yeah, so you know that today is a very dangerous moment, you know, so people divided, you know, so people don't like the foreigner, and the people don't like differences. So it's very dangerous, like Nazism. So I'm very worried about that. But art is possible to join the differences. So it's a kind of so connecting each other. So I believe that the art is a very important issue, very important power for the connecting each other, connecting differences. So that's why I try to create by the art to make a peace.
Alex, if I may just, before you answer, just to let you know one thing, that at the academy, he asked us the question, drawing a graph. He said, there is a war, and then he asked us with the question sign, what is the opposite? And most of us in the hall said peace. But he says, no, art. So on the other side of the war, he puts art. Yeah.
Or very negative things. And the peace is a very equal, so it's like a zero, you know. So nothing and very silent and peaceful. This is a 0 point. The negative thing is a war. And the positive, what's the positive things? This is art. Creation, yes. So it's war and art. It's completely opposite. So that's why.
How do you?
Some art is quite destructive as well. So that's also interesting. What is my position? Well, we have a positive day today because we just read about negotiations in the Middle East. So maybe we will see there soon an ending of the atrocities and wars. My take is our continent is definitely very it's small, and being small, it's very intertwined. The history of it is very united somehow. So then at some point we had these clear borders, and now again they are loosening up, and in some parts again clear borders. But it's definitely a compressed continent. It's not like we have, like in the United States, so much space. So I think, why am I saying this? Because I think that it's a time probably where we need, before peace, we need a certain distance, probably. because I have a slightly different vision of peace. I don't think peace is neutral. Peace is something extremely positive, I find. It's a big plus. But I'm not sure we can go from such minus to a big plus so easily. And I think what in the West is probably now needed, or what should happen, is a certain, at least, time of reflection, of studying, of understanding, of learning from, you know, the past and from other traditions, cultures, and behaviors also, on temperaments, emotional reactions of people. That's why we also have this place here where we can understand how the same event can have such different emotional reactions from people that live so close, right? We have the demonstration right here. And sometimes even within ourselves, we have two different opinions. So I think when the temperature is too high, what we need is a little bit of distance and just let it cool. And this is already difficult enough. And for them peace to arise, and who knows, maybe a new renaissance of the Western model, ideal, artistic values and creation. So, but right now is definitely a very inflamed situation. So I would like to see it cool off a little bit.
A disclaimer. I knew for this debate before summer, and I was in a way afraid because neither music nor visual arts is my specialty. So I was searching for allies during the summer lectures, and I found this book that I would like to quote a little bit from it today. It's Richard Flanagan's seventh question, or question number 7, and you would soon understand why. So it will be in musical terms now, take 5, breathe a little. I will use it 2-3 minutes to explain why I think Richard Flanagan would be ideal, the third on your stage, because he would understand both of you, but at the same time he would add something that maybe only a literature could bring to our debate. So for those who do not know him or his work, Flanagan is an Australian writer born in 1961. He grew up in the remote mining town of Rosebery on Tasmania, western coast, and is today living in Hobart, Tasmania. He's married to Majda Smolej, an ancestor of Slovene immigrants, and his novel from 1997, The Sound of One Hand Clapping, Plosk ene dlani, tells the story of Slovenian immigrants and was a major bestseller. He himself later wrote a script and directed a film based on this novel in 1998. What is more, maybe even important, Flanagan won Booker Prize in 2014 for his novel The Narrow Road to the Deep North, Oska pot globoko do severa, but 10 years later, in 2024, a Baillie Gifford Prize for Question 7, making him the first writer in history to win both Britain's major fiction and non-fiction prizes. So this is considered a non-fiction, and it's a kind of memory writing. However, and this gets us closer to the third pillar of our Go Green, he declared that he would not accept the prize money until Baillie Gifford shared with the public a plan showing how they will decrease their investment in fossil fuel extraction and increase their investment in the renewable energy. So somebody who is fighting all the time, not only for the Tasmanian people, but also for the nature. And then there are two intimate facts. He was born with severe hearing impairment, which was corrected when he was 6 years old. And he survived a drowning where, as a young man, he was kayaking a remote Tasmanian river and became stuck at the bottom of a rapid, boulders trapping him under the water for several hours. Today, a rapid on the Franklin River is named after him, Flanagan Surprise. Here are a few passages from that moment as described in Question 7. So imagine that there is a guy that was writing for 20 years to come to the moment that he could finally articulate an experience that was a near-death experience. And you will understand because most of his book is speaking about 2 atomic bombs being thrown to Japan. It's a little bit long, but it's so nice that please take a patience. He says, I became aware that something was leaving me, It was a very concrete sensation. It was leaving me, and it was also me that was leaving, rising, leaving the river, rising into the gorge, into the sky. It was exquisitely peaceful and calm there. There was no pain, there was no fear. Looking down, I noticed the rescuers far below, haplessly perched on a rock mid-river, upstream of the fall, in which a colored helmet could be made out beneath the rushing river water. I knew, of course, that it was me, but it was also not me, because I was in the sky. And with that, I was suddenly aware that I was leaving my body. So if you want to read this in Slovene, you could do it in the book that was published this year. And it was published, this entire part was published in Guardian in 24. I try not to think of my mother and father. I felt shame, unspeakable shame, as if the fact of my dying was a betrayal of them in some fundamental, inescapable way. I found myself summoning the image of Jay, which is the initial of his former love, Jay's face to fill the water in front of my eyes, even though Jay and I were finished, even though there really hadn't been that much between us in the first place. It was Jay's sweet face that was now everywhere in the water, powering over me. To see them, my parents, to call for my mother would have been the end. And so instead I called Jay's name, saw her face fill the sky, the world, and called Jay's name over and over so that I would not call for my mother and die. To call for my mother would have so seemed like the end, it would have been the end. I was sure of it then, and I am sure now, decades later, that I could not admit it was the end, that I could not call for my mother, that this river, these rocks, this gorge, and the narrow cliffs bounding it there were to be my grave. And yet I knew I would, and soon. And so on, so on. And he finished this sentence with, I had returned, that was all. It was a solitary, uncommunicable knowledge. And so on, so on. But why is it so incredible to write this? Because try to understand his way of thought about the atomic bomb, because you need to know that his father was a survivor of so-called Burma Death Railway, where many prisoners were tortured and killed by Japanese soldiers. So question 7 starts with writer's visit to Ohama camp, where his father was retained, and his father was there on August 6, 1945, for the 4th consecutive year, when only 130 kilometers up north, at 8:15 in the morning, atomic bomb was dropped to Hiroshima and exploded 43 seconds later, killing 60,000 people or more. And then 3 days later, another bomb at Nagasaki, another 40,000 people killed. And try to understand this way of thought. Had the bomb, it's his way of thought, had the bomb never been dropped, killing 60 or 80 or 140,000 people, because his point is that nobody knows the true death toll, and the true human cost can never be a mere calculation. Had the bomb never been dropped, his father could not have survived another winter as a prisoner of war, and without the bomb, Flanagan never would have existed. Imagine the starting point of such a book, which is, I'm there because the catastrophe happened, and how do we consider the relation between life and death? It goes far on, and I really recommend you this reading. But why question 7? And this brings us back to the final point of we would like to have. The title of the book is taken from a short story by Anton Chekhov, and the following quotation, listen carefully, is this one from Chekhov. A train. This is the question number 7. A train had to leave station A at 3 a.m. in order to reach station B at 11 p.m. Just as the train was about to depart, however, an order came that the train had to reach station B by 7 p.m. And then one sentence, who loves longer, a man or a woman? So in a form of a school test with 3 sentences, Chekhov, who loves longer, a man or a woman? So this switch from something that needs to be a mathematical enigma to something that, for Flanagan, quoted from Chekhov, is the question number 7, who loves longer? And you know what would be interesting for you? He puts as a motto of this book something from Duke Ellington. No, this is not piano, these are dreams. A quote from it. And I was so surprised, and reading during the summer lecture, I found something that literally unites you both, because it started from something that is not a piano, but it's dreams, but tells the morbid, the fatal story of the atomic bombing as something that opens questions about life and death. And honestly, my two questions are, you don't have zero in your system because you don't want to give the existence to this dead zone, right, in a way. And on the other side, I wanted to know from this sensibility of yours, have you ever had or nightmare or visions about the atomic bomb? Have you ever tried to visualize what does that mean? Because this is in fact what this book is about. Are we able, to imagine the pain of the other, even if it is so catastrophic? So I would like to start with you and why zero is not part of your system, and then finish with you of saying how somebody who is so sensible, to do from Schubert to Chopin, thinks about some catastrophe that can end all of us. Yeah, please.
The journalist of the Jonathan Shell from America, he said that the atomic bomb is kills the people, but not only the people. So it's kills the time, he said, because before atomic bomb and after atomic bomb, it destroy everything. So it cannot to continue the history after the atomic bomb, he said. I think zero is like that. So nothing time, nothing history. So atomic bomb like that is a very, very shock for the read it.
If I may just comment this, because to me it was so essential that I understand when they try to interpret your zero as a Zen and something. I always thought you would not be able to conceptualize zero the way you did if there would not be the experience of the atomic catastrophe.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important that we hear this from you. Thank you. Alex.
Yeah. Well, question? Yes. I can say that there are, the piano literature is very vast, and there are a few works that really have some kind of, destructive quality in it. And some of them are the war sonatas by Sergei Prokofiev. And I'm actually playing right now. Number 7 is the famous Stalingrad sonata. The 7th question, the 7th sonata. And this was a piece of music he wrote in, I think, 43 or 44 during World War II, and it was during the moment, when the Germans reached Stalingrad, and it was of course, a very delicate situation. Then we know how history went, but it was on the verge, on the border. And I mean, personally, I don't think I can conceptualize something like the atomic bomb. I have seen Oppenheimer, the movie, which went into also visual representation of what that could be, and it definitely opens, I think, realms of perception when you also see it in such, a big screen and everything. It makes you, how to say, it makes you rebounds these images in your mind and imagine what would have been then the reality of it. But I have to say that some music can really evoke certain very extreme sentiments, emotions, and energies. Just raw energy, actually, is not even a human. I don't think the atomic bomb is anything human. So music has also the power of going beyond human, let's say, expression and being very, I would say, very elemental, almost like really hydrogen, and oxygen meeting and releasing an amount of energy. So there are certain pieces of music that can evoke this.
Or performing?
Performing.
When will be the next time?
In Copper.
Okay.
In December. In Japan, actually. Yeah. Now in a month.
Thank you both. We survived. I think they deserve a great applause because it was full of content. Thank you very much, both of you. Really, thank you. But I'm sure there are some curiosity in you, so please use these few more minutes that we have, 7-8 minutes for some of the questions. Profit from the opportunity that two such artists and creators are in front of us. Please, the floor is yours.
It's difficult for me to speak in front of the microphone. It's so official and I'm afraid. Okay, I'm sorry. First, thank you, three of you, for this really beautiful experience. And it is really magic to have a little connection with the soul of all these great artists. And it's really inspiring whenever I really also believe in the power of art, not as artist, as a personality of artist, but although you say the creation is something else, but I think it helps us to just go deeper to ourselves and to rethink and remember all these values that we already have, all this love, all this compassion, empathy. We all already have it, but we so easily forget it. And also, because all religion in their purity, in their basic purity, like all human beings in their basic purity, all they have all this value and know that they exist. So how do you think that your art help us as ordinary people to be connected with this and to remember these really special spots in ourselves and to involved in something that we can be? And do you have some experience? Do you feel that you do something to the people that listen to your music and the people that you're watching your exhibitions? Thank you very much.
I always do it the wrong way. I think it's still the wrong way. Yes. No, yes. Definitely, because, in many situations I am not the musician, I'm the listener when I go to a concert, for example. So I know very well the other side. And I can say that when I am on the other side, and I do it well, because also as a listener you have to do it well. You cannot just be there like a potato. You have to do it well. And when you do it well, it changes you, because what you're doing is you are giving dedication. You're dedicating something. So when you use this, when you use this energy and you dedicate yourself to anything, let's say to listening or to watching, then you already tapped into that sphere, I guess, which the artist wanted to provoke in you. So I do hope that concerts and art and exhibitions and galleries serve this purpose.
I think everybody has an art. So maybe ordinary people, so day by day, thinking and expression as an art, and hearing the music to see the exhibition. That is a kind of the preparing for the protect the world, I think. So if war started, so impossible to stop by the art. You understand? But we can preparing before war. So using art every day, and we need to learn about art, especially for the children. So that's very important preparing for the peace.